It's still dark. You wake up because the fire dropped and the cold found you. Someone's already up. You can hear them feeding it. You lie there for a minute. Nobody's told you what to do today. There's no schedule, no boss, no clock, nothing due. But you already know exactly what has to happen before the sun goes down, and so does everyone else in the cave. By early afternoon, all of it will be done. You've been sold a version of this day already. Prehistoric life is a permanent emergency. Constant hunger, constant danger. Every waking hour spent clawing food out of the dirt before something ate you. Nasty, brutish, short. That story is mostly wrong. And we know it's wrong because there are people alive right now living close to that way. And anthropologists have been following them around with stopwatches for 60 years. What they found is that the average hunter-gatherer worked less than you do, not slightly less. Roughly half. In the 1960s, a Canadian anthropologist named Richard Lee went to the Kalahari and did something nobody had bothered to do. He counted. He followed the Juhuanzi and logged the hours that actually went into getting food. 12 to 19 hours a week, 2 to 3 hours a day. Marshall Solins took those numbers to a conference in 1966 and called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society, not because they had things, because they wanted very little and got it fast. Now here's the part that usually gets left out. That claim got attacked, and the attack was fair. Lee counted hunting and gathering. He didn't count cracking nuts, processing plants, fixing tools, hauling water, minding children. Add those in, and the week gets a lot longer. Later work with the Hadza in Tanzania put actual foraging at 4 to 6 hours a day, with more stacked on top of it. So the honest version isn't that they barely worked. It's this. The part of the day that was about staying alive was usually finished by early afternoon. Everything after that belonged to them. So what did they do with it? Start at the beginning. You wake when it gets light, or a little before, and nobody wakes you. There's no alarm because there is nothing to be late for. And here's something that surprised the people who went and measured it. In 2015, a UCLA sleep researcher named Jerome Siegel put activity monitors on 3 groups: the Hadza in Tanzania, the San in Namibia, the Simane in Bolivia. 3 continents, no electricity, no clocks. All 3 slept between 5.5 and 7 hours a night, less than you're told you need. And none of those 3 languages has a word for insomnia. The morning is slow. People sit near the fire and talk. Nobody eats much. Breakfast isn't really a thing. Then, somewhere in the first couple of hours, the camp splits. This is the part that gets remembered wrong. The picture in your head is men hunting, spears, running something huge to death. That happened. But in most warm climate foraging groups anyone has studied, the majority of the calories came from plants, and the plants were mostly carried back by women. The Juhuanzi had the mongongo nut, protein-dense, everywhere, and so abundant that thousands of them rotted on the ground uneaten every year. A researcher once asked a Juhuan man why his people had never taken up farming. He said, "Why should we plant when there are so many mongongo nuts in the world?" Meanwhile, the hunt mostly fails. Frank Marlowe's work with Hadza hunters put large game at roughly 1 animal per 30 hunter days. Do that arithmetic. A man walks out, spends the day tracking, and comes back with nothing on something like 29 days out of 30. Think about walking into work tomorrow with that success rate. That's not incompetence. That is what hunting large animals with a bow actually is. It's why the plants mattered so much. Meat was the jackpot. Tubers were the paycheck. And then there's honey, and this is the part that sounds made up. The Hadza pull a serious share of their calories out of wild bee nests, and they don't find them alone. There's a bird called the greater honey guide that leads people to hives on purpose. The Hadza whistle. The bird answers, then flies ahead in stages and waits for them to catch up. A study in Mozambique in 2016 found that using the right call raised the odds of being led to a nest from about 16% to over 50%. The bird gets the wax. We get the honey. Nobody trained it. It's a wild animal that evolved to work with us, and it has been going on so long we can't date the start of it. Now it's hot, and here is where the day stops looking like work at all. Midday in camp is nothing. People lie in the shade. They sleep. They sit and pick through each other's hair. Children run in mixed-age packs and nobody is really watching them. And there are games. Hadza men play a gambling game called lukuchuko, flicking discs of bark against a tree and betting arrows and beads on how they land. It can run for hours. We're bad at seeing this as real. It reads as a gap in the day. It isn't a gap in the day. It is the day. 5 or 6 hours that aren't owed to anybody. And that is the single biggest difference between their life and yours. Then the afternoon fills up. And it fills up with making. This is exactly where the anthropologists undercounted. Every object in camp is falling apart all the time. Bindings loosen, points snap, cord frays, hides need scraping. Somebody is always sitting down and fixing something. But they went a long way past repair. And here's where it gets genuinely strange. At Dolny Viestanitz and Pavlov in Moravia, 26,000 years ago, people were pressing woven textiles into wet clay. We don't have the textiles. We have their impressions, fired hard and preserved by accident. Olga Soffer identified plaited cord, basketry, and fine netting in those imprints. Nets for hunting, bags, cloth in the middle of the Ice Age. The same sites gave us the oldest fired ceramics anywhere on Earth, and they aren't pots. They're figurines, animals, and women. Thousands of fragments of them, and many appear to have been put into the fire deliberately wet so that they would crack apart in the heat. Somebody spent an afternoon making something in order to blow it up. Ask yourself the last time you made something with your hands that had no purpose at all. Or take Ohalo 2 on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. 23,000 years old, preserved underwater. 6 brush huts, grass bedding laid down on the floors, remains of 140 plant species, and a grinding stone with traces of wild barley on it, which means flour. 13,000 years before anybody farmed anything. None of that is survival. That's an afternoon with room in it. Then the light goes, and the day changes character completely. An anthropologist named Polly Wiesner recorded Jew/Hoanzi conversations by day and by night, and compared them. Daytime talk was practical. Land, resources, arguments, complaints about each other. After dark, around the fire, more than 80% of it turned into stories, songs, and talk about people who weren't there. Firelight did that. It softens faces, hides expressions, takes the heat out of an argument. Nobody's working. Nobody can leave. The same 15 or 20 people are sitting in the same circle they sat in last night. That's where the knowledge moved. Where the water is in a drought year. Which plant kills you. Who your cousins are. 4 camps away. Nothing was written down. So the fire was the archive, and the archive had to be read out loud every single night or it was gone. And it wasn't only survival information. Most of those night stories were about other people. Who did what to whom. 3 camps over. 2 generations back. Gossip sounds trivial until you realize it's how you learn the rules of a society that has nothing written down. And then sleep. And this is the part nobody talks about. David Sampson monitored a Hadza camp continuously for 20 days. Across 220 hours of recording, there were only 18 minutes when every adult was asleep at the same time. 18 minutes. Nobody arranged that. Older people wake early and sleep lightly. Younger people stay up. Spread that across a camp with a wide age range, and somebody is always awake. Which means that for most of human history, the reason nothing dragged you out of your bed at night is that somebody's grandmother was a light sleeper. So that's the day. Short work, long afternoons, a fire at the end of it. And then we gave it up. About 12,000 years ago, people started farming, and the story we tell is that this was progress. The bones disagree. Skeletons from the eastern Mediterranean show average height dropping by 4 to 6 inches between the late Paleolithic and the first farming villages. At Dixon Mounds in Illinois, archaeologists compared foragers with the maize farmers who lived at the same site afterward. The farmers had 4 times the iron deficiency anemia, 50% more defects in their tooth enamel, 3 times the bone lesions from infection. Life expectancy fell. Farming gives you more calories per acre and worse calories per person. You eat 1 crop instead of 140 plants. You live next to your own waste and your animals, which is where most of our infectious diseases came from in the first place. And you can't walk away from a bad year because your food is in the ground. And nobody chose this. There was no meeting, no vote. Farming spread because a field feeds more people than a forest does, and more people need more field. Once you're in, you can't leave, because the population you're now feeding only exists because you started farming. It's a trap that closes behind you. The workday got longer too, because grain has to be planted, weeded, guarded, harvested, threshed, stored, and defended. Which is also the first moment in human history when food could be counted, hoarded, taken, and owned. Everything we mean by wealth starts there. So does everything we mean by poverty. So here's the full picture. They woke up without an alarm. They ate what the women brought back, most days. They failed at hunting, most days. They followed a bird to honey. They spent the hottest hours of the day doing absolutely nothing, and nobody called it lazy. They made nets and figurines and flour thousands of years before anyone needed any of it. They sat around a fire every night and passed the entire memory of the species from one mouth to the next. And then they slept in shifts without ever agreeing to, so that someone was always awake. So what did ancient humans actually do all day? Less than you, and more that mattered. You have a machine for every job on that list. Your food arrives. Your water is piped in. Nothing you own gets repaired by hand. You automated away the entire survival half of the day, and somehow you are busier than they were, because they finished. That's the part we lost. Their work had an end, and when they reached it, they stopped, and the rest of the day was just theirs. You didn't get a shorter day. you got a fuller one. One question before you go, and I actually want to know. If tomorrow were completely yours, nothing scheduled, nothing due, what would you do with it? Not what you'd want to do, what you'd actually do by hour 6. Put it in the comments. If you got something out of this, a like genuinely helps it find other people. And if you want more of them, subscribing is how you get them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.